Today, FDA approvals in multiple myeloma and lung cancer, a European Union approval in melanoma, and insight from leaders in the field of urology. Hello and welcome to OncLive News Network. I'm Laura Jones. This week, the FDA approved elotuzumab for use in combination with lenalidomide and dexamethasone for patients with multiple myeloma following the failure of 1, 2, 3 prior therapies. The approval was based on data from the Phase 3 ELOQUENT-2 trial, in which the triplet combination with elotuzumab reduced the risk of disease progression by 30% compared with lenalidomide and dexamethasone alone. At a median follow-up of 2 years, progression-free survival with the elotuzumab regimen was 19.4 months versus 14.9 months with lenalidomide and dexamethasone alone. The 1-year progression-free survival rate for the elotuzumab and the control arm was 68% versus 57% respectively, with the difference in 2-year progression-free survival rates increasing to 41% versus 27%. Overall response rate was 79% with the triplet and 66% for the control group. The overall survival data for the trial are not yet mature. This decision marked the third approval for multiple myeloma in November. Earlier in the month, the FDA also approved the oral proteasome inhibitor ixazomib and the CD38 antibody daratumumab. The FDA approved necitumumab in combination with gemcitabine and cisplatin for the first-line treatment of patients with locally advanced or metastatic squamous non-small cell lung cancer based on findings from the Phase 3 SQUIRE trial. In the study, the addition of the anti-EGFR monoclonal antibody necitumumab to gemcitabine and cisplatin improved overall survival by 1.6 months, which was equivalent to a 16% reduction in the risk of death. Progression-free survival was improved by 15% with the triplet therapy. After a follow-up of approximately 25 months, the median overall survival was 11.5 months in the necitumumab arm versus 9.9 months with chemotherapy alone. The median progression-free survival with necitumumab was 5.7 versus 5.5 months for chemotherapy alone. The overall response rate was 31% in the necitumumab arm and 29% with the chemotherapy alone. The label includes a boxed warning to alert healthcare providers of serious risks of treatment with necitumumab, including cardiac arrest and sudden death, as well as magnesium deficiency. The European Commission approved the combination of vemurafenib and cobimetinib as treatment for patients with BRAF-positive metastatic or unresectable melanoma based on the Phase 3 COBRAM study. The study compared the MEK inhibitor cobimetinib plus the BRAF inhibitor vemurafenib to single-agent vemurafenib in previously untreated patients with BRAF V600EK mutation-positive unresectable locally advanced or metastatic melanoma. In the study, 495 patients were randomized to continuous vemurafenib at 960 milligrams twice daily plus placebo, or cobimetinib at 60 milligrams once daily on days 1 to 21 of a 28-day cycle. In the data submitted to the EC, the median progression-free survival with the combination was 12.3 months versus 7.2 months for vemurafenib alone. At a 17-month analysis, 65% of patients receiving the combination were alive versus 50% for vemurafenib. The objective response rate with the combination was 70%, compared with 50% for the monotherapy. Overall survival data from COBRAM were recently presented at the 2015 Society for Melanoma Research Congress. The median overall survival was 22.3 months with the combination versus 17.4 months with vemurafenib alone, representing a 30% reduction in the risk of death. The 1- and 2-year overall survival rates with the combination were 74.5% and 48.3% respectively. The FDA approved the combination in the United States on November 10, 2015. Also in melanoma news, the FDA has issued a complete response letter to Bristol Myers Squibb, informing the company that additional data were needed for its supplemental biologics license application for the use of single-agent nivolumab in previously untreated patients with BRAF V600 mutation-positive advanced melanoma. The application was based on the CheckMate 066 trial and additional data for a BRAF-positive group. In August 2015, an application for frontline nivolumab in patients with BRAF wild-type melanoma was delayed by 3 months following the submission of data for the BRAF mutant population. In November, following this delay, the FDA granted approval for the frontline BRAF wild-type indication. However, a decision was not handed down for the BRAF-positive group. As part of the complete response letter, the FDA indicated the need for additional data in the BRAF mutated patient population, according to a statement released by the company. Bristol Myers Squibb is working to evaluate the request outlined by the FDA and will continue to work closely with the agency to determine whether additional data currently under review adequately addresses these comments. A separate supplemental BLA was also submitted for BRAF mutant advanced melanoma based on Phase 3 data from the CheckMate 067 trial. This application was granted a priority review with a decision deadline of January 23, 2016. Before we conclude our news program today, we would like to share some great insight from key leaders in the field of urology. In this next clip, Dr. Judd Mowell from Duke University Medical Center explains how he differentiates between radium-223 and older radiopharmaceutical agents in the treatment of prostate cancer.
We grew up, we had samarium and strontium, and one I remember trade name was Quadramet, and the problem with those agents is if as a urologist, I remember if we pulled the trigger for one of those agents back in the day, our medical oncology partners would not necessarily be happy with us because of the risk for myelosuppression, and the concern in that era was, one, no real documented survival benefit, and two, the myelosuppression may limit the use of chemotherapy. So they were always a challenge, although they were useful for bone pain. Now with radium-223, which is the first radiopharmaceutical that actually has a documented survival benefit, and the risk of myelosuppression is much less. It's not zero, there is still some risk, but it's much less. So the drug can be administered a little bit easier and can be done a little bit earlier and doesn't burn the bridge for chemotherapy.
And that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for watching OncLive News Network. I'm Laura Jones. We'll see you next time.